speakers out in the audience wishing to speak to the budget item? Okay. I'll close public comment and bring it back to our parking lot items now. Is that correct?
Good afternoon. Okay, what I wanted to do is to use kind of the same format I had used yesterday, and we're kind of adding on to it. And if this format isn't clear, by all means tell me, because I'd like to get to something that really works for you. As far as the response column, what I did was kind of highlight those things that are kind of what we're going to follow up on. Then if there was more follow-up or further discussion yesterday that then translated into something else, that's what's gone into the third column. I do want to do one correction on the correction, though, under the second row, contingency fund discrepancy in numbers. It will be corrected, but it's in the system. That actual sheet that says 200,000 will not be in the final budget report itself, but we'll make sure that in the system it is fixed. Okay, so moving down then that third column, the interest on Teeter, the follow-up on that is we identified that $700,000 is what has been budgeted for interest, and if you subtract out the $200,000 of general fund that is being applied to the Teeter budget unit, that would leave $500,000 of general fund needed to fully pay the interest out of general fund money as opposed to out of the Teeter revenues. And what that would mean is that we would at least stay even. We would not lose any ground. However, the rest of the amortization payment that we're not making is what would go towards principal. But this will at least keep us even with the interest. So that's what that information represents. So I'm just kind of making sure people understand where we got those numbers from. When we were talking about the conference allocation for third district supervisor, what came out of that was looking at policy. It's general expense policy, but I used the specific examples here. And then the $4,000 may or may not be in the parking lot. It's something that ultimately you'll have to give direction on. Under the discussion around funding for Scout Lake, we had brought back a particular proposal, but there was what I'll call disinclination on the board's part to use RDA for that. There may be, it would depend on what funding is available in contingency, and direction was given to the CEO to review staffing and budget of the water agency to develop a funding plan. But the conclusion at this point is that that does not specifically affect the budget, because we were looking at items that were already in the budget. No further work at these budget deliberations on the following four items. And then on the electronic agenda management, then that negative $25,000 would be in the parking lot for board direction. And then turning the page over, I added the Resource Conservation District, which is $40,000 that, you know, at this point is kind of in your parking lot. And funding for EMS, what I got out of that discussion, right now the budget includes $50,000. There was an interest on the board's part in adding another $50,000, and that is something that, to me, is listed in the parking lot, and so we'll kind of keep going on that. And then funding for fire districts, the budget includes $50,000, which is all we were able to eke out. But the discussion that came out of that was presenting the long-term strategy for board review and support. And as was pointed out, the board set that in motion in May when we established the work groups, and the intention is to report back to the board and to have a specific pathway before the end of the year. The Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission is there. There was a request for Schedule 9s for the Sheriff's Office. The Schedule 9s can't be completed pending the final budget deliberations and the preparation of the final report. But we do have year-end reports from Eunice, and that's what we have been able to provide. And then there was discussion around department head accountability for the budget. And I think as we discussed this in the executive office, the follow-up to that is those of us who have been department heads here for a while know the letter that has been sent out periodically reminding us of our personal liability for staying within budget. But the other things that we talked about from the executive office standpoint were building review into the quarterly presentations. In other words, review of any time it looks like somebody's going to be going over budget, then that would be specifically and separately reviewed and discussed in the presentations made to the board around those quarterly fiscal reports. We would identify the consequences, and, I think one of the consequences is, needing to meet with the executive office and possibly the auditor's office and develop a plan to ensure that you don't go over budget. And then determining the accountability target for each department. Clearly, the accountability target for most departments is, in fact, their budget, their adopted budget. There was certainly some discussion yesterday regarding sheriff's budget,